Welcome back to another video. So in our previous videos, we have covered a lot of Spring topics, and from this video, we are also creating a new project. Means we are going to create a new Spring project because in our earlier videos, we have covered a lot of topics in one particular Java project or a Spring project. Whereas in this, I'm creating a new project so that you can follow along from here from scratch. If you haven't followed along in previous videos, but definitely if you haven't watched previous video, you can go and watch the previous video. So as you have clicked or you have seen, the title of the video is that you're going to cover Hibernate advanced mapping. So moreover, there are 3 to 4 types of mapping: one to one, one to many, and many to many. Whereas in one to one we have unidirectional and we have bidirectional. And there are further more topics to further cover on. But for now, we'll start from one to one unidirectional. So as you can see that you can open your startspring.io and you can select the Maven or Gradle. If you're using Gradle, but I would recommend you to use Maven because 80% of the industries are using Maven. Then secondly, you can use Java, and you can also use the latest version of the Spring Boot. Usually when you open this website, the one which is selected by default, you can use that Spring version, which is mainly 3 and above. Now you can define your group ID, you can define your artifact ID, you can define your name, and here we are going to cover advanced Hibernate mapping, and it will be a jar based build. And also, if we are using Java 17, we can use 21 and 23 further on, but for now we are going to cover Java 17, and the dependency we are going to use is Spring Web, Spring Data JP, and a PostgreSQL driver, because we are using data Postgre as our database. I'm not using Lombok for now because I haven't covered Lombok separately. You can also add on Lombok if you are familiar with Lombok, but for now we are not using it, and I haven't used Lombok till now. I know that it's an easy thing, but we will going to cover Lombok in later videos. So let's download this project. We will download it in your folder, and then you can unzip this project, and then you can, okay, before opening that project, what we can do is we can go in our previous project, because we are going to use the same database. We just copy the our app database setup from our applications or property file, and then we can open that project, the one which we have downloaded for our, so it is getting loaded. It will take for a while. Okay, applications or property, we can define our information in here, change our port number to 991. Now pom.xml, see whether our dependency is added. Okay, JPA is there, web is there, and Postgre is also there. Okay, now we are going to open our application properties. Okay, things are okay. Now what are we going to do is, because in our previous video we have used customer DB where we have covered a couple of topics in here. Okay, now what are we going to do is we are going to create separate DB. We leave it as it is, and then how we are going to do that? We are just going to rename this customer to user, but make sure that this DB exists in database. So what you need to do is you need to copy this, and you need to create a new database, define user DB, save it. Currently its default schema is public, there is no table, does not exist. We will just refresh it. Okay, so yeah, so our database is also created. We are going to use different database, and now let us simply begin. So before just simply writing the code, we'll just structure our project. What else we need? We need a controller, we need a service layer, we need a repo, we need our services, and we need our entity. So let us create all the package first. We'll create controller first. Controller, then we need our DTO, we need our entity, we need our repo, don't need this one. Repo entity DTO controller service. This is very crucial. If in an interview anyone asks you, write a simple Spring Boot project, and if you don't structure it, if you put all the classes in one package, then they will know that you don't know anything about design or an API. And now let us define our entity. So in this example, we can use any example which is covered as one-to-many or one-to-one or many-to-many. So for now, we're going to use very basic example of user profile. Anywhere you go, user are maintained. Every company maintain user. Every project have a user. So every application is made for a user. So you will be having user, and then you will be having a type of profile that user have, something like that. Okay. So now what are we going to do is we're going to create our Java class which will be user. Simple. And then what are we going to do is we are going to annotate it with entity, and then we are going to annotate it with table. And we will define what name we want for our table. We are not going to use default name created by Spring, but we need our app underscore user, our table name. And then what we need our ID. Now we need username, email. And then what are we going to do is we are going to mark this as an ID, and then the ID will be generated value, and the strategy will be we can use any strategy, generator type auto. Okay. And now what are we going to do is what we need it will come we need to define getter setter here. And okay, and also we need to define the relationship between the profile. In our previous video we are only inserting into one table, but here this is advanced, so we insert in one table but it will automatically insert in another table. So that's a one-to-one mapping. So here we need to define something related to profile. Okay, so we'll leave it here. We will come back to here again. First, now come to profile, our profile entity. We'll create our class profile, and then in profile what are we going to do is same thing, define it as an entity, and then define it as a table, and table name is equal to app underscore profile. Perfect. Now this table will also have private string. I think we can define it as id as long, yeah, not a string. Private string. Every user will have an address. Private string address, phone number, and then we define the getter and setter. Okay, so now we also need to define the primary key, which is this, and then also the generation type. Strategy we can use, I think we'll use identity here. Okay, so now we'll come back to our user again, and here also we'll change it to long, I guess. Yeah, we'll change it, better make it long than to string. Okay, so now what are we going to do is, as I mentioned, right, we will come to profile later. So what are we going to do is we need to link this to each other. Private profile. So this is a linkage of user table to profile. Okay, but it will not work like this. What we need to do is we need to define one-to-one mapping here. One to see, we have one to many, one to one, and I think many to one here, many to one. For now, we are going to cover one to one. We need direction. We define one to one, and then what are we going to do is we need to define cascade. Cascade is a thing. Okay, I'll explain it later. Cascade all fetch. So I think I will leave this thing. This is I will cover in more detail later on. So cascade all we are going to do, and then what we're going to do, we need to define join column, and then define the name profile underscore ID. You know what this one-to-one is doing? This one-to-one is telling Spring that this table has a relationship to this table for the profile ID, which is used to join these two tables. Means the ID of profile, which is this, is helped to join this table to user table. And cascade means, meaning to say, if you have cascading means the incremental effect, meaning to say if you have a pack of cards and if you have seen that game that if you remove one card, all card is follow the path, means all card will be fallen down. So if you remove a record from a user table and that record is tied to profiles, then that profile will also be deleted, meaning to say if you insert in user table, it will automatically insert into profile table. If you delete in user table, it will automatically delete in profile table. That's what cascade all means. There are other types, but we will cover those things in later stages. So now we have defined our, and we know that how are we going to join these two tables. This is the only thing, and this is the way to do unidirectional. There is another way bidirectional, which we will cover in our later video. So now let us generate getter get setter. Now let us generate getter and setter quickly. People use Lombard, but the ID is quite easy to generate getter and setter. So no need to generate Lombard for now. Okay, so we have created our user and profile entity. So now what we need, once we have created our user and profile entity, we need our repo. So we are using JPA. So what are we going to do is we'll come to our repo and then we'll create our Java HTML interface, and what will be user POSI user repository implements. I think it will be extend, sorry, JPA repository, and then it will be fetching from user long, comma long, and we need to import user, and this is what our, no, we don't need. Okay, so we have our user repo. After we define our user repo, what we need our service layer, user service. This is service, and then we need to user repo. I'm going to use simple. What we did here. If you haven't watched my previous video, you better go and watch what we did here. And if you want comment down, what you can comment down in the section below. Find public user, save user with profile, and then we are going to pass user comma profile, and then we need user dot set profile, and then we whatever profile it is. Okay, we haven't defined the variable here, that's why it is not coming. We need to define profile, and we need to return what have we got? Whatever we have saved. User repo dot save. Find user. Perfect. So what this is doing, this is getting the user, setting it into a profile, and then getting the profile, and then returning, means it is returning whatever is saved in database, but user repo to save the user detail and the profile detail into our database using Spring API. So after we have created this, now what we need is we need our controller layer. But before controller layer, we need our request, because there are two things. We can also insert this information via command line, but that is what was in real, but we don't do that unless until we are building any Spring Batch application. But in this case, we are going to every application you build, every company you work on, you have to insert information using a API. You need to build an API, a microservice. Both work the same way. So we will build our controller layer. So now what are we going to do is we define our user controller. Define it as controller or also REST controller. Both are fine. Now then we can define request, mapping, and define our endpoint slash v1 slash API slash users. Now what we need is we need our constructor injection. Final user service layer. User service. We can define add constructor. We are doing constructor injection here. If you haven't commented down whatever we did in controller, whatever we did in our repo service layer, same thing we did here. We have injected our user service as a constructor injection. If you don't know, go and watch previous videos. Response ISPON response entity, which will be return type of user, and then what are we going to do is we are creating a user. Also we import this, we get user, and the request will be we haven't created our request body. REQ USD request body. We'll come to here later on. User request, user request. Okay. Let us create it. Let us create it first. So DTO data transfer object. We will create our user request class, and then this is very basic Java DTO. We need here two things. Okay. We're needing here both the information, user information and profile information in one object. See, I would suggest you to type the code than to copy paste it. If you're not typing, then your brain will not address this information. You will forget this very easily. And with nowadays, we are hardly doing anything with our brain. Everything is copy paste. So if you want to learn, you better type or write. Now the simple thing, just send it. See, with Lombard, just add one iteration. But with get asserted, you need to do a little bit of effort. Now we have one problem in here. What is the problem? User request. Okay, we need to input it. We input our user request, and now what are we going to do is in our controller we need to define this information to user. We'll create our user object, and then what are we going to do? We need to set the information which is coming from our set username. We need to set our username. We'll set it later. We need to set username, then we need to set our user email. We need to set user profile. So how you can set user profile? We need to first create the user profile. So now we cannot do this way. We need to create user profile. User profile. We are creating profile object, then we are going to print profile set address profile dot set phone number. So now what are we going to do is we need to get this information from our user request. User request dot get username, user request dot get email, and then user request dot get address, and then user request dot get PN phone number. And then what are we going to do is we are going to call our user and then saved user. We call our user service dot our saved user method, and then we pass our saved user and profile. And then we're going to return whatever we have saved. Return response entity dot okay, and then what are we going to do? We can saved user perfect. So here we have created our user object, user and profile object, map the information from the request to our object, and then pass it to our save user profile, and then using this save this information into our database using JPA, and then return that information to our controller, and then display that information to our API. And now what are we going to do is we are going to run this application and see whether it is working fine or not. We have done a lot of things. Come here, run this application. Finger crossed. Let us see whether it will run or not. Because it has to create these tables also in here. Okay, so DB is already there. There was nothing present in here. Okay. Oh wow, these two already. So our application ran successfully. Application ran successfully. The application started and output this much, and then that's why we just saw the database here. We haven't created. If you don't recall it, go back to starting of the video and rewatch it. These two tables just appeared once I have ran this application, app user and app profile. So now let us do one quick thing and show you the relationship between these two tables after using. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Yardi tool. Perfect. So now you can see that this user, let us hide some details. So profile has one-to-one relationship between user table. There is some issue with this logo, ignoring that. This is one-to-one relationship between the table. Now what are we going to do is we are going to open our query tool, select star from app underscore user. Okay, no record. Select star from app underscore profile. ID address phone numbers. Okay, so we have two tables. Okay, now what are we going to do is we'll open our postman, and what are we going to do is we're just going to duplicate it. Okay, and then we will change bit of y, and then this will be user. Okay, and then what are we going to do? We'll delete all these endpoint. This video is getting bigger because we are doing everything from scratch. Coming videos will be, there will be no auth. Okay, so we haven't covered anything, and our port is 91. And what is our endpoint? V1 API user. Okay, this is our endpoint, and we have a body which is of type JSON. So what are we going to do? We're going to quickly define our JSON. So our username. So as we are fan of Elon Musk, we're going to define Elon. And what we need? Email. We still don't know Mars, planet Mars. This is cool. Okay, so now as soon as we run this, our expected result is that as soon as we run this, our expected result is we will rerun this and we will show you that there is no information in our table. Okay, no information is present in our table. We will rerun it and we will see, we will run it and we will see what happens. Okay, there we got an error which is saying API user not found. Okay, so it is saying it's not found. Something is wrong. Okay, nothing inserted. Then what is wrong? API v1 users. API v1 users. Let us debug this and see what is wrong. Okay, you know what is wrong? The very basic thing is wrong. Let us stop our application. We have created our method create user, but we haven't created our what? We haven't defined it as a, it is get or post. Post mapping. Now we will rerun our application. It is started. Okay, still no records. Now let us see. See why method not alone. Oh, we are using get issued post. Perfect. Let us see how beautiful this looks. We have inserted information. Whatever information we have inserted here, we are getting our return type, username, email, profile, ID. Now let us come back to our database. This is magical. So we got our information in app user table, and then let us see. Perfect. So we have inserted in our app one table and it is automatically inserted into profile table. This is what one-to-one mapping is. I hope you're enjoying this. Subscribe to my channel. Now I leave it to you to enter some couple of more records, and then in next video we are going to cover bidirectional relationship. Right now the relationship is only from user to profile, not from profile to user. Okay, thank you.